Chapter 8, Taylor Farm, 2036.
Lisa stood at the kitchen sink, staring out over the eastern pasture as the first light of morning stretched across the land. The sky glowed in hushed tones, orange fading into indigo, while dew clung to the tall grass like a secret. A half-full mug of coffee steamed beside her, forgotten. She hadn't spoken to Daniel alone in over a week. He was always busy now, locked in strategy sessions with Luke, pacing the fields with Tracy, vanishing into the trailer with eyes too tired for someone so young. And Tracy? She was everywhere. Sitting beside him at meals, walking in step with him like they shared a private rhythm. Laughing softly in that way that once belonged to Lisa. It wasn't just envy. It was something harder to name. She remembered the years when Daniel was broken, when he barely spoke, barely ate. When she was the one who coaxed him out of silence, who sat on the floor beside him while he stared through walls, who held him when he didn't even know he wanted to be held. Back then, he'd clung to her like she was the last thing tethering him to this world. Now he barely looked at her. And Lisa knew why. He was avoiding her and Caroline for the same reason, because they had asked him to make a sacrifice, to live in the shadows so Luke could stand in the spotlight, his spotlight. Lisa hadn't done it for Luke. She'd done it for Libby, because her little girl deserved her father present. And Daniel's quiet brilliance had made that possible. She wanted to apologize, but she couldn't, because she wasn't sorry. And if she had to do it all over again, she would. And that was the part that hurt the most. Later that morning, Lisa pushed the screen door open with her hip, carrying a basket of folded laundry through the hallway. The trailer was quiet, humming only with the faint buzz of overhead lights and the occasional beep from a holographic display left on standby. She hadn't meant to interrupt anything, just drop off clothes, maybe say a quick hello. Then she saw them. Tracy stood near the back of the trailer, head tilted, her shirt half-buttoned. Daniel's hands were at her collar, fingers working with slow care at the clasp near her throat. He was focused, gentle. Tracy's expression was unreadable. They weren't speaking, but something passed between them. An ease, an intimacy, one that didn't belong to Lisa. She froze in the hallway, half-shadowed, watching without meaning to. Tracy's left sleeve hung loose, empty, the result of a blast in Syria years ago. Lisa knew that. Everyone did. Logically, it made sense. Daniel was just helping, just being kind. But Lisa didn't see logic. She saw closeness. She saw trust. She saw Daniel smiling at someone else like that. Her stomach tightened. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly. It was older than that, deeper. The moment sparked something raw in her chest, something half-buried but never fully gone. A voice she hadn't heard in years uncoiled in the back of her mind, sharp as ever. He doesn't want you because you're not special anymore. Lisa turned away before they could notice her. She left the laundry basket in the hallway and walked back outside, barefoot on the warm planks of the porch. Her breath came shallow. Her skin tingled, not from heat, but from shame. Tracy had always been better, smarter, braver. She'd earned her scars overseas. Lisa had earned hers in the shadows of bad decisions. And Daniel, sweet, brilliant Daniel, was drifting toward that strength, not toward her. She gripped the porch railing hard enough to sting. The voice returned. Louder this time. You know how to bring him back. You know what you're good at. What you've always been good at. Lisa closed her eyes. She told herself it wasn't true, that she'd changed, that she was more than the body she used to weaponize in the quiet moments between chaos. But standing there, unseen and unwanted, she wasn't so sure. That night, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Lisa lay awake in her room, staring at the ceiling while moonlight painted long shadows across the floor. Luke was working late in Montgomery. Tracy was in D.C. Somewhere down the hill, Daniel's trailer still glowed, faint lights flickering behind the windows like a beacon for everything she shouldn't be thinking. She knew what she was doing. She'd known since the porch. since she saw the way Daniel looked at Tracy, since the voice in her head, sharp and familiar, reminded her what her body had always been good for. You want him back? This is how. She got out of bed. No plan, just instinct, just the same gravity that had pulled her toward bad decisions her whole life, only this time dressed up in grief and longing. She changed into something casual, soft and clean. She brushed her hair. No makeup, but enough to look warm, approachable, familiar. She even reheated the plate she'd made earlier because part of her still needed an excuse, something to hold in her hands besides guilt. When she knocked, she didn't wait. Daniel looked up from his desk, eyes heavy, jaw tense. He was surrounded by chaos, blueprints, readouts, glowing graphs in every color. There were circles under his eyes and caffeine in his veins. "Hey," Lisa said, stepping in like it was nothing. "You forgot to eat again." He gave a tired smile. "Thanks." She placed the plate down, letting her hand linger on the table. A long silence settled between them. Daniel could feel it immediately. Something different in the room. The shift in her body language. The softness in her voice. The way she sat down across from him. Not with the cautious kindness of a sister-in-law, but with the deliberate quiet of a woman who wanted to be seen. They talked. Not much. Nothing important. She made him laugh once. He tried not to notice how close she was sitting. But he did notice. And when her hand found his shoulder, he didn't stop her. She leaned in, brushing a lock of hair behind his ear. Her fingers grazed his cheek, feather-light. Her eyes searched his face, not for permission, but for connection. Daniel's breath caught. She was beautiful, not in a distant magazine cover kind of way, but real, immediate, the curve of her shoulder where the strap slipped, the way her hair fell loose over one eye. Her voice, low, familiar, threaded with something he couldn't name but felt down in his spine. And she'd always been the first. The first woman he ever noticed. Not just saw, but noticed. Long before he understood why. Long before he understood what it meant to want. Back then, he was just a quiet, broken kid with a head full of noise, and Lisa was the only calm in the storm. And now she was here, her hand on his chest, her lips inches from his. Want bloomed in him, raw and clumsy. He was 16 and straining to control feelings he hadn't mastered yet. His mind raced, body flooded with heat, every nerve leaning toward her like a magnet. He knew it was wrong. She was Luke's wife. But that thought didn't land like it should, because Luke was more than willing to let him rot in the shadows. Luke had taken the credit, taken the future, taken the air out of every room Daniel would ever walk into, and his family called it noble, pretending not to see the knife in it. Maybe this was her way of saying sorry, of giving something back. This is how she makes it right. That thought, dark, selfish, real, lodged deep. He didn't believe she loved him, not like that. But maybe she needed this as much as he did. The loneliness, the guilt, the ache for something that felt like freedom. Her hand didn't tremble. Neither did his. Daniel didn't stop her, because some part of him, young and stupid and furious, wanted this, wanted her, wanted something that hadn't already been taken from him. Her lips hovered inches from his. And still, he didn't move, and then, "Don't do this, Daniel." The voice didn't echo. It entered, slipped past thought, past instinct. It was inside him, sudden, calm, precise, female, intimate, unmistakably real. Daniel flinched, staggering back half a step, not from Lisa, but from the shock of it. His pulse spiked, chest tight. He looked around like he expected someone to be in the room, but it wasn't coming from the room, it was coming from him. "Who?" he started to ask aloud. The voice answered gently. "I'm not here to scare you. I've known you for a long time, Daniel. Longer than you remember." He went still. I know how much this moment hurts. I know what it feels like to be forgotten, to give everything away and still come second. I know how angry you are. At Luke, at her, at yourself. A pause, soft, personal. But this isn't what you want, not really. Daniel's breath shuddered. His hands were shaking now. He looked down at Lisa, her lips, her hand on his chest, the warmth that still burned through his skin. "You don't know me," he whispered. "I do," the voice said. "I've watched you survive things no child should. I've seen your mind rebuild itself from ruin. I was there the first time you learned to breathe without permission." Her tone dropped, tender now. "Daniel, look at her pupils. She's on something. She's not thinking clearly. You aren't the only one trying to fill a hole tonight. Think about how she'll feel tomorrow. Think about Libby." He blinked. The fog in his chest began to clear, replaced by a deep, twisting nausea. And for the first time in weeks, he saw clearly. Lisa's breath was shallow, her hands too still. Her smile, a mask barely held together by whatever she'd taken. Not seductive, just numb. The ache inside Daniel fractured. Shame, anger, guilt slamming into each other like tectonic plates. He stepped back, gently but firmly. "I can't." Lisa blinked, confused. "Daniel, it's okay. I want this." "No," he said, voice low. "You don't. Not really." She stared at him, her mouth opening, then closing again. "I'd be lying if I said I never thought about this," Daniel said, his voice thick. "About you. You were the first woman I ever noticed, before I even knew what that meant." He ran a hand through his hair, heart pounding. "But you're Luke's wife, Libby's mom. And even if none of that were true..." He swallowed hard. "I understand what that 7-year-old version of me gave you. He gave you something real, something that mattered. If I sleep with you now, like this, I take that away. I take him back. And I can't do that." Lisa stood there unmoving. Her eyes welled up, but not from rejection, from recognition. She stepped forward and hugged him. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even desperate. It was grateful. Daniel wrapped his arms around her, held her tightly, let the storm pass through both of them without saying another word. Then Lisa stepped back. "I just need a minute," she whispered. And she walked outside, the door clicking softly behind her. As the door clicked shut behind Lisa, and the silence that followed felt too deep to be natural, Daniel sat down slowly, his hands resting on his knees, his breath unsteady. His pulse was still racing, not from the almost kiss, but from what came after. From her. "Are you still there?" he asked aloud, voice barely above a whisper. A pause. Then, "I'm here." It wasn't just hearing her again, it was feeling her, like a presence inside the quiet, like his thoughts had grown a second voice. "You're not in my head," he muttered, more to himself than to her. "I mean, you are, but not like a hallucination." "No," Van said. "I'm not a symptom. I'm not a voice you invented. I'm not your conscience. Think of me as the signal that finally got through." Daniel laughed, short and sharp. "Right. A signal, like what? Some alien radio show?" "Something like that," Van replied, almost amused. "Let's just say I've been trying to reach you for a long time. Tonight was the first time you were quiet enough to listen." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on the worn floorboards. "Why me?" "I could answer that," she said, "but I don't think you'd believe me. Not yet." Daniel's jaw tensed. "Try me." "You're not ready," Van said gently. "But you will be. Soon." He ran a hand through his hair. "You saved me back there. I wasn't going to let you destroy something beautiful just because you didn't know what else to do with your pain." Daniel swallowed hard. I'm still not sure this is real. I think this could be some kind of stress-induced mental break. I need proof. Show me this is real. Van was silent for a beat. You'll get it. No. I mean now. I need something. Real. Something you couldn't possibly know unless you're exactly who you say you are. Otherwise, I'm calling Tracy, and you can explain this to a psych eval. Another pause. Then Van's voice returned, measured, hesitant. Lisa is about to come back inside. She's wearing a black camisole and navy blue underwear. The right side has a small tear on her hip near the waistband. Daniel blinked. What the hell kind of proof is that? The kind you'll believe, Van said. I didn't pick it to be vulgar. I picked it because it's real, because you wouldn't know. But I do. The doorknob turned. Lisa stepped back inside, arms folded, eyes soft. Hey, you okay? Daniel didn't answer right away. She took a step closer. I didn't mean for any of that to happen. I wasn't thinking straight. I wanted to say I'm sorry. He stared at her, breath caught in his throat. Lisa tilted her head, confused. Daniel? He swallowed. Can I ask you something weird? A beat. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Weirder than the last 20 minutes? He exhaled shakily. Your underwear. Is it navy blue? Tiny tear on the waistband? Right side? Lisa blinked. Her mouth opened. Then she blinked again. Slowly her expression softened, not angry, just stunned. Okay, she said. That's really specific. Daniel said nothing. She scratched her arm. I mean, yeah. That's the pair. He nodded slowly, then slumped back into the chair like his spine had just given out. Lisa took a hesitant step forward. Are you okay? I don't know, he said truthfully. But I think so. The days that followed were quiet in a way Daniel hadn't felt in years. He didn't tell anyone about the voice, not yet. But Van was always there now, soft-spoken, witty when she wanted to be, fierce when he second-guessed himself, and sharp, so sharp it made his head spin. She wasn't just a whisper anymore, she was a partner. Late at night, when the rest of the house was dark and the only light came from the glow of his holoscreens, Van would talk him through modeling assumptions and pressure thresholds. She could run full-scale simulations in real time, correct his math mid-equation, and predict failure patterns 3 steps ahead of his own thinking. At first, Daniel had tested her, throwing impossible variables, scrambled input sets, outdated Soviet thermodynamic tables. She never stumbled. If anything, she seemed amused. You're trying to break me, she said once. I'm trying to see where the edges are, he replied. She paused for just a second, then whispered, Careful. You might find out you don't have any. That line haunted him for days, in a good way. In truth, the timing of Van's arrival had been excellent. Tracy still called sometimes, sent messages. But she was around less and less. Always some excuse, a Senate subcommittee, a Space Force logistics hearing, a site inspection. He didn't ask questions, and she didn't offer more than she had to. He missed her, but he didn't blame her. And strangely, it didn't crush him. Because Van filled the silence in a different way. Not with distraction, with focus. When he doubted himself, she showed him the flaw in his logic. When he spiraled, she offered clarity without pity. He'd never had that before, not from anyone. Lisa, to her credit, had begun to drift back into his orbit as well. Not in the way it had been, not how it almost was, but real, grounded. Sometimes she brought him dinner and stayed just long enough to ask how the simulations were going. Sometimes she curled up on the trailer couch with Libby, both of them watching some ridiculous space documentary while Daniel scribbled heat bloom maps at the table. Every now and then, An errant pair of her underwear would still end up in his laundry, always explained with a shrug and a must have been a mistake. He didn't press. Some things were better left half understood, but the tension between them had softened, and for the first time in a long time, Daniel felt like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone anymore.